Yes. Good to see you. So I'm gonna move over here. Okay. You know what? Let's go over here. Look at my lucky spot.
You guys ready? He's on Zoom. I would imagine. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to wait a few minutes while people are coming in and swimming inside right now.
Good evening, sir. How are you? How are you? Hey, Chris. How are you? Good. Yourself? Oh.
Tell me when you're ready.
Believe us, he has the jacket. Everybody's got a jacket.
All right.
So
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting for June 20th, 2023. Can we please have roll call?
Commissioner Drosky. Commissioner Hudak.
Here.
Commissioner Preston.
Here.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Here.
Mayor Gans.
Here. As many of you can tell, we have Vice Mayor Parnas with us live remotely. We could all please stand for a moment of silence and our Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. If we could have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the regular city commission meeting of May 16th, 2023.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes for our firefighters pension fund meeting minutes of March 6, 2023. Planning and zoning board meeting minutes of May 4th, 2023. Code compliance meeting minutes of March 22nd and May 9th. African American Heritage Committee meeting minutes of April 13th and May 11th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the agenda tonight for June 20th, 2023.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Vice Mayor. All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak under public comment or on an item that's open for public input, please click raise hand at the bottom of the participants tab and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. For those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first item we have is a certificate of recognition. Nursing assistants provide as much as 90% of the care received by residents in nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. The annual National Nursing Assistants Week is a special week to recognize the efforts and the dedication of those important healthcare workers and all the hard work that they do. Every nursing assistant is a key player in the lives of the people in his or her care. Changes everywhere in healthcare today, and every certified nursing assistant has a vital role in working with others to create the changes that will benefit all. Certified nursing assistants are called to develop new skills, centered care, electronic reporting, prevent rehospitalizations, and provide safety in the care setting. The City of Deerfield Beach is committed to quality healthcare and would like to thank our very own certified nursing assistants from the Braithwaite Center for Active Aging. The City of Deerfield Beach would like to declare the week of June 14th through the 20th as Certified Nursing Assistants Week. Ladies and gentlemen, these are our heroes right here from the Braithwaite Center. Absolutely. Thank you. Next, we have a certificate of recognition presented by Captain Hofstein to the BSO law enforcement staff. Captain?
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. City Manager, and residents of Deerfield Beach. Always an honor and a privilege to be up here and recognize our folks. I'm always especially proud to recognize when they save a life. And that's something obviously we actually do every day throughout this nation in law enforcement, whether directly or indirectly. But in this particular day, this was May 23rd. Gentlemen, come forward if you would. These two very dedicated and hardworking public servants were on duty. This is Sergeant Augusti, Dave Augusti, and Deputy Stanley Vensky. Unfortunately, Deputy Anthony Gonzalez, who's monitoring, cannot join us in person, but he was also part of this. So fortunately, they were on duty on May 23rd. And Deputy Vensky was actually transporting a prisoner as he was doing his job and arresting bad guys. But he was also very diligent observing of his surroundings. And he was on 48th Street at the I-95 overpass when he noticed something unusual that caught it. And that was somebody sitting on the retaining wall, or if you will, the barrier wall, with their feet dangling over on the highway side. And I know some folks in this room, especially our elected officials, are aware of this issue that we've had before. And because sadly, as we all know, mental health issues are a very serious issue that we deal with in our community. And on that particular day, this young lady, this young girl, a juvenile girl, mind you, was in duress. And this mental crisis that she was in brought her to make this decision to ponder leaping off of this I-95 overpass. And thankfully, Deputy Vensky, being very vigilant of his surroundings, saw what was going on. And bearing in mind, he had a prisoner on board. So he stopped, but he could not take immediate action because he had to worry about containing his prisoner. But he was able to kind of coordinate the scene, notify everyone on the police radio what was occurring, and summon additional deputies who responded. As you can imagine, there's a lot of moving parts to this. At this point, too, we also have to stop traffic below. We have to coordinate with FHP. We have to do everything in our power to make it as safe as possible for this individual and also all these passerbys and vehicles. So he was able to coordinate that. And I'm also pleased to report a citizen also stopped to help. And we're going to be honoring that citizen at a later date when she's available. So this really was the community coming together when we talk about teamwork. So this citizen stopped to talk to this young lady. Deputy Vensky did what he had to do in the immediacy while controlling his prisoner and protecting the community and also helping protect this scene and this individual. Probably within a span of a couple of minutes, Sergeant Augusti arrived along with Deputy Gonzalez, and they recognized immediate action was warranted to make this young lady safe. And that's exactly what they did. And they were able to physically remove her from the wall and bring her down to safety and place her into protective custody. And as you know, this is probably the third such incident I can recall in as many years. And each and every time our deputies, I'm proud to say, were there to save that life and prevent that person from jumping. So for that, for saving that life, for doing all that they do for this community every day, I thank you for the opportunity to commend you to and present to you these certificates as our employees of the month. And they also will be receiving the agency's life-saving award. Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, man.
Thank you. I'd also like to recognize that we have part of Senator Pizzo's staff that are here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. Everything he's doing for us up in Tallahassee.
Great. Ready for the next item here? Okay, items number 3 and 4, it's my understanding these will be presented together, so I'm going to go ahead and read both of them in the record. We will need separate votes on each one of these items. Item number 3 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, considering sign variances for King Motor Company of South Florida, case number 781, to permit a second wall sign on both the north elevation of Hyundai and the east elevation of Genesis, and to permit 2 6.1 square foot on-premise directional wall signs and 2 5.1 square foot freestanding directional signs in lieu of the 2 square foot maximum required by the City Land Development Code for the property located at 1345, 1351, and 1399 South Federal Highway, Deerfield, Florida, providing for an effective date. That is a variance item, so that will require a 4/5 vote. Item number 4 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, considering a major site plan modification application from King Motor Company of South Florida to demolish existing Suzuki and Saturn Mitsubishi dealership buildings, renovate and expand the service area for the Hyundai dealership, and construct a new Genesis dealership building and display area and related site improvements at the property located at 1345 through 1399 South Federal Highway, Deerfield Beach, Florida, in the Business Highway B2 zoning district, application number 94-B2-65, revision 6, providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date. I believe Mr. Mealy is here on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Mealy, if you could let me know whether you waive quasi. Thank you.
Dennis Mealy, Dennis Mealy, 200 East Broward Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale. Yes, we will waive the quasi judicial procedure. We do have some slides to show, and I thank you for the city clerk to help me with this. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the King family has been here in Deerfield Beach for over 40 years now. Very pleased to be here and to be continuing our automotive efforts here. So you see our property location. And, you know, this is an area where there's a few car dealerships in a row. We have our location, then there's the Toyota just south of us, and actually just south of that is the Honda dealership. If we can go to the next slide, please. So zeroing in on our site, you see our current buildings. We're going to be demolishing portions of some of those buildings, building some new buildings, and we'll show you in a minute what's going away and what's coming in. So and when you see we have 13th Court along the top here, Federal Highway along the east. If we can go to the next slide, please. So you can see here in blue, but not necessarily the blue cross hatching, kind of the solid blue. Those are the areas that are going away, and the kind of orangey yellow color is the areas that are being added. So really that northern building is being totally renovated between the blue crosshatched area and the blue that's going away and the orange that's being added. That'll be it is currently the Mitsubishi Saturn that'll be going away, and the Genesis will be coming in. For those of you who may not be aware, Genesis is the luxury brand that's associated with Hyundai, you know, kind of like Lexus to Toyota and that sort of thing. So we'll be adding Genesis, and we'll all be renovating and upgrading the Hyundai location. And then again, you see the access is solely from Federal Highway or 13th Court. No access onto 6th Avenue, which is the same way it is now. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is just, we're going to have a few pictures just kind of showing you what it looks like today. So this is the existing view of the Mitsubishi dealership, which is the northern of the two buildings. We can go to the next slide, please. And again, the existing view of the Suzuki. And again, these are the ones that are going away. If we can go to the next slide, please. And the existing view of the Hyundai, which is being renovated, and we'll show you drawings for both Genesis and Hyundai, so you'll see what they're going to look like when we're finished. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is the new Genesis building. You see their logo on the left, and then kind of over to the right where it says King Genesis, you see the service bays. And I'll be talking about signage a little bit more in a minute. These are mostly just to show you the building designs. If we can go to the next slide, please. So then this is just kind of a view from the corner of 13th and Federal. And you see we're going to be doing some pretty substantial upgrading in the landscaping and the hardscapes and other things on the site, in addition to the new buildings. You see the Genesis building over to the right, and you see the Hyundai building over to the left. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then just a little bit closer up view of the Hyundai building. And if we can go to the next slide, please. And then just another view of the Hyundai building. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so now I'm focusing on the signage variances. So you'll see these are the various signs on the property. The ones in yellow are not the subject of variances. Those are regular code compliance signs. The ones we really need to talk about are the blue, the green, and the orange. And I'll kind of go through those one by one. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the city attorney read the variances. This is just telling you the code section and the requirements, and he already read them, so I'll go straight to the pictures. We can go to the next slide, please. So the one on the left is the one associated with the Hyundai, and the one on the right is the one associated with the Genesis. But showing them this way doesn't really show you anything other than we wanted you to see the sizes. They're small. They're not large signs. We can go to the next slide, please. So this is on the Genesis building, and this would be the elevation facing Federal Highway. So the sign number 6, which is yellow, does not require a variance, but sign number 7 does. And what's unusual about this is you're allowed to have 100 square feet of signage. So if the logo was right next to the words King Genesis, there would be no variance because it's less than 100 square feet. Unfortunately, the manufacturer dictates to us how we put this signage up. The Genesis manufacturer, the Hyundai manufacturer. So if 6 and 7 were right next to each other, it wouldn't be a variance because it's less than 100 square feet, but they're separated. And you notice they add up to a total of 82 square feet where we're allowed to have 100. Now the service sign, which is over on the left, is 6 square feet or 6.1 instead of 2.1. We'll show you an example. If we made it 2.1 square feet, you can't see it. That's why it needs to be a little bigger. And, typical to a service drive at a car dealership, it's letting you know that's where you need to go if you're bringing your car in for service. And of course, those doors that you see under the word service, those would be open to allow your car to go in. And then they can close them when they're in there working. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this is similar on the Hyundai, on the elevation facing Federal Highway. If the Hyundai and the King were right next to each other, it wouldn't be a variance. But again, the manufacturer dictates that we do it this way. You see that we're not going anywhere near the 100 square feet we're allowed. When you add these signs together, we're less than 62 square feet. So it's not like we're trying to get more signage in terms of size. It's just the manufacturer dictates the words be separate instead of pushed together. We can go to the next slide, please. So those two were the first category of the 3 categories of variance, the signs on the building. Now these are the service signs. And again, they're larger than the code would normally require or normally permit with the 6.1 square feet. But if we go to the next slide, I'll show you how it would look on the building. So you see at the bottom is the Hyundai with the service at 6.1. On the top, it's the 2.0. And I know you can see the white in there, and you might even be able to read that it says SERVICE, but it's very, very hard to see. So that's why we have asked for a little bit higher than the code would normally allow. If we can go to the next slide, please. So then this again shows you on the Genesis building the same thing. On the top panel, you see the 2 square foot service sign, which you can't read. And at the bottom, you see the 6 square foot, which you can read. And that's why we're asking for that variance. And if we go to the next slide, this is the last category. So in this category, the freestanding directional signs is the kind of sign that's in a parking lot. And when you come up to a spot where you could either go straight or turn right or turn left, you'll have a directional sign here letting you know. If you go into the showroom at Genesis, turn right. If you go into the service, turn left. If you go into the EV charging stations, turn right. And the same thing for Hyundai, where service and showroom are straight ahead. And then in this type of sign, you don't measure the rectangle around the letters, you measure the size of the structure itself. So you see these structures are 3 feet tall and they're 5.1 square feet. So if we go to the next slide, so this is showing you an example. So if we look at the one on the left, this would be the Hyundai. You see 2 signs there. We're not going to have 2 signs. We're only going to have 1. The one on the left, which is the taller one, is the one we're proposing. The one next to it is if we did the 2 square feet. And so the reason we're showing this is if you're in your car and you're driving, I don't think you're going to be able to see that shorter one. And the taller one's not real big or anything. It's only 3 feet high. It's very tasteful. And then the same thing on the right for the Genesis. We're not asking for 2 signs. We're just showing the one we're proposing next to the one that the code would allow. And just again, if you're driving there, that little one so close to the ground, I don't think you're going to be able to read it. So the sign copy on these signs is not larger, but the structure, obviously you can see, is larger. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then we're just showing the Toyota dealership, which is right next to us. They have a similar situation now. They've been there a long time. I don't know if they got a variance or if a variance was even required back in the day when they were built. But you see how the Toyota and the logo are separate from the Deerfield Beach, just like our Genesis and our Gullwing are separate, or our Hyundai and our King are separate. And then you see on the right, they have the freestanding directional signs, similar to what we're proposing once you get into the parking lot. In terms of the signage out on the road, the monument signs and all that on Federal Highway, they comply with the code completely. It's only once you get into the property that we have these sign variance categories that we showed. And I think, clerk, is there maybe one more? Yes. And then this is just showing you some of the other dealerships. There's a Genesis dealership under construction in Coconut Creek right now, and you see how their service is set up similar to what we're proposing. And then this is just a picture of a Hyundai that was recently built in Orlando with this new architectural design, the same type of design we're using. And then I think that might be the last one. Yes. So other than that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. And if there's any public comment, I'd like the opportunity to respond as appropriate. Thank you very much.
City Clerk and then Commissioner Preston.
Pursuant to Ordinance 2009-006, City of Deerfield Beach Code of Ethics, the applicant's representative, Dennis Mealy, made the following campaign contributions. Commissioner Michael Hudak, $500 on February 5th, 2019. Vice Mayor Bernie Parnes, $500 on January 19th, 2021. And Commissioner Todd Drosky, $500 on December 23rd, 2020. The applicant's representative's firm, Greenspoon Martyr, made the following campaign contributions. Commissioner Michael Hudak, $500 on February 9th, 2019, and $500 on November 21st, 2022. Vice Mayor Bernie Parnes, $500 on January 19th, 2021, and Commissioner Todd Drosky, $500 on December 23rd, 2020. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston.
Yes, when I was reading the information on this, that area is unique in Deerfield. It actually, that area used to be Piccadilly cafeteria back in there.
That's correct.
And it always has been kind of a little bit of an issue if you're talking about signage. And so I can see exactly how this could actually be a deterrent to people who want to come to the business. But because it sits back in there and just getting in there and then, just looking at things, I can see why it would be appropriate to be able to increase the signage so that people can see. And I actually went over there and looked around, and I'm able to connect with what you're saying there. So
The buildings are definitely set back from Federal Highway, a
That's right.
very good distance.
that's right. That's right. And I used to eat there all the time. It was good. And, Piccadilly was really awesome. And
Well, I noticed that the name of the plat still has Piccadilly in it.
does it really?
Yeah.
Yes. Pardon? Okay, Vice Mayor Parnes, go right ahead.
This is a question for the city attorney. When I came to Florida in 1989, I worked for King Toyota for about 11 years. I don't know if that would be a conflict. I mean, I haven't worked for them now in 20 years, but I did work for them for 11 years. And would it be apropos for me to recuse myself, or am I allowed to speak on the subject?
Based on the facts you just presented to me, I do not see a legal conflict. The only reason why I think you would recuse yourself in this situation is if for some reason you do not think you can be unbiased. But with 20 years past, doesn't sound like you're currently compensated by them. And whether you vote yes or no, I didn't hear anything that would inure to your financial benefit.
Thank you. Let me say this about King and the Toyota family. When I came to Florida and they hired me, they treated me like family. When a year or so later, my father died, they offered to pay for the funeral. They took care of their community and they took care of their employees in the same manner Jim Moran did. In fact, every other Saturday, Lewis King with his big cowboy hat and Jim Moran would come in and thank the salesman for making them rich. Toyotas have always been a class car. They've always treated the city well. I do not see, since they branched out, I can remember when the King family owned 28 dealerships and have served the community well. So I'm suggesting to the rest of the commission that we allow them to expand with the Hyundai project because I think it's good for the city.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Let's see, is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Not seeing any, I'm going to close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Commissioner Drosky, do you want to make comments?
I did. I'm going to have a slightly different opinion. I have no problems with the site plan approval. And Mr. Mealy and I had a very detailed and vigorous conversation regarding this. If we can vote on the variances separately, because I don't have a problem with two of the three, the wayfaring signs, the signage to get around the dealership. I don't have any problems with that, or the service signs. I think you need the bigger signs to see where you're going. The signage indicating the dealership, though, I just don't see the hardship there. The fact that the manufacturer dictates where the signage goes isn't good enough for me. That's just not a hardship to sign off on. If you go to Exhibit F, please. And I don't know what page it was.
Is it F?
It's labeled as F. And then the one right after it is G.
It's page 15.
So there, so the two signs, so you have on the left, you have the wing symbol, and on the right, you have the King Genesis. Both, when you add them together, are under 100 feet. So if you put them together, you don't need the variance. The only reason you need the variance is because you're separating them and making them two signs on different sides of the building. So if you look on the left, you have the wings, and on the right, you have King Genesis. Now go to the next slide, please. And on that building, you have the symbol in Hyundai, and you have King on the other side. So that doesn't really make, and again, those are less than 100 feet too. And if you could put them together, they would be less than 100 feet and you wouldn't need the variance. So I don't understand the need for the variance other than we're being told we need it. I'm not trying to be anti-business or anti-King family. Every variance stands on its own, but I just don't see it for that variance in this case.
Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to point out, we wish we could push them together and eliminate this, but unfortunately the manufacturer, for whatever reasons they have, told us we have to do it this way. So I hope it's okay to have separate votes the way the commissioner described.
You can do separate votes. Ultimately, I think I'll want one motion at the end based on those votes to approve the item. So let's say if two of the signs are denied, we'll do a motion at the end to approve the other four.
And of course, we're hoping they'll all be approved and you'll still have a motion at the end.
I had to give some example.
I understand the need to kind of prove a hardship on this. Obviously, that's what our rules are and that's what it's set up to do. Certainly the service sign, the wayfaring sign, I mean, that's a common sense. They need to be done. Otherwise, you're going to have people driving all around that parking lot. And I don't think that's going to be a real safe situation, endlessly in a loop. But part of it, in my opinion, is that we have these sign rules the way we do is for aesthetics. And crunching those together, I mean, it's more aesthetically pleasing the way it's being proposed, as opposed to pushing them together, which goes against their own branding that they do. It's not going to be oversized. I mean, to me, it's almost a technicality is that we're saying that Well, if they were squished together, they would be within the code and they don't need a variance and they don't need it. But from an aesthetic standpoint and from their own branding that they need to do it, I see no harm here. If anything, it makes it look better. And if, I don't know if ugliness can be a hardship. It is for some people.
Thank you.
But I don't say this is ugly, but I think it's more aesthetically pleasing. So I would be in support of all of these sign variances.
I can do the math, so I think Commissioner Hudak's motion is fine the way it is.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Hudak. Do we have a second?
I guess I have to do for item 3 and then for item 4. Do we have to do them
We need
separately?
separate vote. We need separate votes on each item. Your motion was to item 3, correct? And Mr. Preston, your second?
Commissioner Preston seconded it. All right, for item number 3. Okay, can we have roll call?
Commissioner Drosky,
No.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes,
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Okay, and now item number 4 is the major site plan.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes,
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 5 is an ordinance to the City Commission, the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 54 Pensions and Retirement, Article 5 Municipal Firefighters Pension Trust Fund, Section 54-257 Conditions of Disability, Section 54-271 Members, Terms of Office, Election of Chairman and Secretary, and Section 54-309 Benefits other than on retirement of the City Code of Ordinances to address recent changes in state law, compliance with the Secure Act, and the board trustee qualifications, providing for conflict severability, codification, and an effective date. This is second reading. This came in from a request from the pension attorney. I did give a little summary at first reading, and I'm happy to answer any questions to the extent you have any.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Yes, sir.
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. With the just released CAFR, it had said in there that for fiscal 22 that the city of Deerfield Beach had to pay out $6.3 million to the municipal firefighters pension fund. So obviously that's a big chunk of change, and I was trying to find out a little bit more information about this, and I looked all across the city's website, and I can't find anywhere where it announces when their next meeting is. So if somebody could help me out and tell me when they're meeting next, I would love to hear that. I was able to find out that they meet at the DoubleTree and not at City Hall and not at any other city facility. So I'm a little puzzled why that is. But the other thing is on the city's website, when you try to get some financial information, their fiscal year end financial statements, the last one that's posted on there is from September 30th, 2000. So there's nothing for 2021 and nothing for 2022. And I don't understand why that wouldn't be posted on there. And the same thing for their actuarial report for the same fiscal year ending. The last one is for 9/30/20, and there's nothing for 9/30/21 or 9/30/22. And obviously, I think with that kind of dollar outlay, it would be great if the citizens could get a little bit more current information on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any comment on the actual item that we're voting on? It is, but you've talked everything except what specifically we're voting on. Are you supportive or?
I am supportive of the exact change, but it would be great to get that information that I spoke about.
Sure. So you're in favor of the change. Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else from the public? And close it to the public. Board.
Motion to approve.
second,
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes,
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Okay, we are now at public comment. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you have public comment on an item that is on the agenda, the time to do it is after I read the title into the record and the public comment period is opened by the mayor. No comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Daniel Shinetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33442. Good evening, commissioners. I want to give a shout out. I want to give kudos and I want to give praise to Broward County Commissioner Mark Bogan. He's County Commissioner District 2. Basically, he asked that the Broward County test the drinking water in Broward 27 cities for PFA. PFA is commonly known as forever chemicals. Now, drinking water can be contaminated with PFAs due to discharges in rivers or lakes in proximity to industrial sites. So Commissioner Bogan personally paid for tests for 10 cities in his District 2, including Deerfield Beach, and to get results. Now, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has limits of PFA. PFA chemicals cause cancer and tumors in lab animals, and they don't break down. That's why they call forever chemicals. Now, Commissioner Bogan was alerted to a possible problem in Broward County drinking water due to a FIU, Florida International University publication that reported that the PFA tests in Dania Beach showed levels of 124 ppts. Now, the EPA health guide is 70 ppts, so this was elevated. So Commissioner Bogan again tested cities in his District 2, like Deerfield Beach, Parkland, Coconut Creek, Pompano, Margate, and he tested the tap water to determine whether there are PFAs in the drinking water and at what level. And again, PFAs can be eliminated by reverse osmosis in the water system, in homes, and this eliminates a contaminant. So this was very important, but we needed to identify first if there are PFAs. Now, I have good news. Commissioner Bernie Parnes did a tour with County Commissioner Mark Bogan of our Deerfield Beach water facilities, and he said that with the results of the tests that our water in Deerfield Beach is in excellent shape. And in fact, Commissioner Parnes said that public grocery stores in South Florida use the water from Deerfield Beach facilities. So I want to give a shout out for County Commissioner Mark Bogan for helping us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Rosenzweig, 97 Farnham E in Deerfield. I'd like to, on top of what Dan mentioned, when I was on the commission, that way I understood that water is being tested several times during the day, as many as 8 and 10 times, to make sure that there is nothing in the water that would be contaminated in this village, in the city. And as I understand it now, it's been maintained to that point and been improved since then. And I was curious if you have information on that. If you have any, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Willie Rosetta Graham Bracy. And I'm back again. But I'm just now I got another thing. They were told to put a speed bump by my house. And the speed bump, every time I turn my car in, my driveway, because my car is a sports car and it's low, and it hit, it like comes up. And I took it to King Honda, and they told me that I'm going to soon have to get an alignment because my tires is getting out of balance. The reason I took it was because my tire light came on. And every time I turn in my driveway, my car like sits up. And I'm just tired. And because, and it's getting off balance. And it's the speed bump is sitting right on my driveway, at my driveway. When I turn in the yard, I gotta turn in on the speed bump. And I talked to the engineer and he said they were told to put it there. And in the last month, crime is rising over there in that area. And it's just a matter of time for something really, really bad gonna happen. And I would like to know, why do the people go to the bathroom at night when the bathrooms is locked and they are on the park? And the scent gonna come over across the street. And the fence shouldn't have never been taken down until they got ready to do the park. And everybody is in their house at night. And if you don't get up, and when I get up, I have to look out there to see my car out there, because people are stealing cars in that area. And I'm afraid not only me, other people too, gonna wake up one night and the car's gonna be gone or broken into. If the fence was up, they wouldn't be on the park at night. And I mean, nobody's paying me no attention. And people smokes at night. And one of these nights is gonna be a fire out there, and it's not gonna be a building out there anymore. And you all should think about that. And if you think I'm making it up, you should just ride by there sometime. Or you should just come to my driveway and turn in there and see how your car gonna turn up. And I can't afford to fix or have my car lined up, and if it's gonna get out of line, because the two lights came on in there. And when the two lights came on, I was scared. So I took it to the Honda dealer, and that's what they told me.
Ms. Bracy, can you give us your address for the record, please?
501 Northwest First Terrace. And
Thank
you all know it was a death down the street 2 or 3 weeks ago. That streak is just getting to be bad.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Anyone online? Katie Freitag, go right ahead.
Good evening, Wilson Moore, 331 Northwest,
Or we'll let you go ahead.
331 Northwest Second Terrace, Deerfield Beach, Florida. I second what Ms. Bracy has said. That park is really getting bad. There's individuals just hanging out there all the time. I mean, I rode my bike through there on Saturday morning, like around 9 o'clock, and they were already there, taking up space, sitting on the tables, in and out of the bathroom, and it is pretty bad. All they have is like a little wooden fence, like you put in front of cattle or something like that. It's not doing any good. And so it would be helpful if they put up a fence, and so that maybe to keep some of the guys out of there, or if we can have BSO riding through there occasionally to, tell them to move on, because they're just sitting in there, conducting whatever business they're conducting. And you can ride through there and just smell whatever they're smoking. And it's not a good situation. Other thing, I want to congratulate the city on the Juneteenth celebration on Saturday out at the park. It was a very good celebration. The rain kind of dampened everything at the end there, but it was a good celebration. It has come up since last year's celebration. It was a great improvement. So I want to thank the city for that. And one other thing, I was out at the beach. I see the new lights that they put up along the sidewalks. I don't know, are they supposed to be brighter than that? Because it doesn't seem to me that they're giving out a lot of light. They're taller than the other ones were, but that's just my observation. I could be wrong on that, but that's just, what I saw on that. And just another reminder, July 1st, that gun law goes into effect. So let's just be aware that's a dangerous situation that's going to be in effect for the state and for our police officers and us as citizens, that anybody can carry a weapon and you're not going to know it. So don't blow your horn at anybody or don't disturb anybody, because it's a dangerous situation now. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Ms. Freitag?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mayor Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast Second Street. I want to give kudos to the city staff for providing so much information during the budget workshops. I'm hoping that the insight and feedback that the commission and citizens provided should be enough for staff to review, edit, and present the best budget for our city. I'm a little upset that the citizens should have been more in attendance. It's the only way to really understand the intricate workings of the city. And it also negates questions in the future. Hopefully next year we can come up with a better campaign to get people to show up, as it really is beneficial for all of us to be there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. At one of the last city commission meetings, the commissioners approved a 15-year extension to the city's contract with the Kiwanis Club of Deerfield Beach to exclusively rent out the advertising on the city's 108 bus benches. These bus benches are an asset of the city of Deerfield Beach and thus belong to the taxpayers. Let me make it very clear. The criticism with the commission's action in approving the 15-year contract extension is in no way a criticism of the wonderful work the 73-member Kiwanis organization has done for Deerfield Beach over many, many years. My criticism is with Mr. Santucci and the commissioners, who have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers to oversee all city assets that ultimately belong to the taxpayers. The commissioners were not willing to review the contract that Kiwanis has with the advertising company that Kiwanis subcontracted with to sell the city's bus bench advertising. Is Mr. Santucci or the city commissioners aware that in the whole state of Florida, no other Kiwanis has an arrangement with their respective city to handle and sell advertising on the city's bus benches? As a result, how does the city know whether Kiwanis is receiving fair market revenue for the advertising on the city's bus benches? Kiwanis of Deerfield Beach can't compare what other Kiwanis groups may be receiving for advertising on city-owned bus benches because this arrangement is not happening anywhere else in Florida. Also, unless Deerfield Beach Kiwanis has a bus bench advertising expert as one of its members, how will they know if the advertising company they contracted with is paying a fair market rate to Kiwanis for the bus bench advertising space? A further concern is the potential conflict arising when Mr. Sullivan of Kiwanis mentioned the advertising company they contracted with is a Kiwanis of Deerfield Beach member. Why would Mr. Santucci and the commissioners not want to ensure that Kiwanis was getting the best deal possible from the bus bench advertising company? After all, the more money Kiwanis receives, the more money they can donate back to all the good causes they support within the city of Deerfield Beach. I'm not saying any laws have been broken here, but if Mr. Santucci and the commissioners refuse to perform their fiduciary responsibilities to properly oversee city assets that belong to the taxpayer, it just further erodes the taxpayers' confidence in Mr. Santucci and their elected city commissioners. Maybe next time, Mr. Santucci and the commissioners will think twice before allowing city assets to be transferred for 15 years without any supervision whatsoever. With whatever time I have left, I wanted to thank all responsible for a great Deerfield Beach June. One more minute?
Sure.
Thank you. I wanted to thank all responsible for a great Deerfield Beach Juneteenth celebration on Saturday. Even with threatening skies, I thought the turnout exceeded expectations, and I would like to call on Mr. Santucci to reconsider his plans to cut the Juneteenth budget by 23% for next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Richard Rosenzweig, still 97
You've
Farnham.
already spoke, Mr. Rosenzweig.
I want to add if I could.
No,
No.
you can't.
Thank you.
You've sat up here, you know what the rules are. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken yet that'd like to speak?
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Janet Castro Giovanni. I reside at 1523 East Hillsborough Boulevard, Deerfield Beach. My concern of it is about the water supply and not only about the pollutants in there, but I've been a healthcare activist for many years. But what I'm concerned about is the fluoride. I've read many studies pertaining to this, and I found it to be a very detrimental for your health. Now, even though, we are allowed certain amount of percentage, it's still, to me, I think it's a problem. And I know that many other cities around, like Boca, for example, they took it out of the water. So I think, it's a big concern, if there is a problem with it, that should be looked into. Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
that's it.
Appreciate
Thank
it. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay, I'm gonna close it to the public. And I'll have, if staff could meet with, former Commissioner Rosenzweig and get an answer his question, I wasn't quite, I apologize, I wasn't quite following what you were asking about our testing. Ms. Bracy, I would imagine when they put the speed tables in, and I'm gonna look into it for you to find out, because usually they don't put them that close to someone's driveway. Proximity seems strange, so I want to look at it myself and talk to staff and find out what happened with that. But as you know, one of the problems with the people that are over in the park, and you and I've talked about this, when you feed those gentlemen over there, yes, we talked about it. When you feed them, they're going to come. So that is part of the problem. I understand what the issue is as far as what they're doing. It's real simple. They're not supposed to be in the park at night. So that's something BSO needs to be making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do to keep them out of the park. The fencing is no different than we have in pretty much any other neighborhood parks that we have within the city. So, but at this one in particular, if you're having issues over there, and I haven't heard any reports that say crime has gone up in that area, but you live there, so you know what's going on. You have a good eye on everything. So we'll certainly work with staff and talk to them about that. I know there was a public meeting. There wasn't a lot of people that said they wanted the fence to go back up, but I would imagine there's still going to be some further conversations regarding that, though. So no, ma'am, you and I can talk afterwards if that's okay. I don't know what to say about the new state law, but I will say we have ShotSpotter. That is an amazing technology that if there is some sort of issues with guns going off, they're able to find it pretty quickly. As a matter of fact, what people might not know is that ShotSpotter has already located some shots going off in our city. It turns out it's people most likely using air rifles against iguanas in very strange spots. So that's how good that technology is, that it's able to pick up certain things. So, but certainly your point is well taken. I find it odd to come back later and armchair quarterback and not debate on a subject matter that when it was presented, I don't recall any comments being made about it. But your points have been heard, Mr. Hers, on the bus bench issue. And I think when people were here from Kiwanis, they were in full support. I don't remember, I think you were here, but I don't think you commented on it then. So I think we've already approved it at this point. But your points are well taken. Trying to think if there's something else on there. I think that's all the questions. As far as fluoride, that's an interesting comment. We've heard that before. And there's a lot of various thoughts on that, but if you have any information you'd like to send us, I'd like to see it. That's staff, anything? That it? Okay.
Okay, we are now on consent agreements and expenditure requests. Items 6 through 10 are currently on consent.
Is there anyone from the public that want to comment on either 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10? Just raise your hand if you'd like to. Is anyone online? 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10? Commissioner, are there any polls? Okay. Anyone? All right, I'm gonna close it. The public, this can be a single motion can.
That's
move it
correct.
forward.
And a roll call vote.
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 11 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, accepting and adopting the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022, providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Commissioners. Here. Stephanie Tinsley, CFO, City of Deerfield Beach. So tonight I am presenting along with our auditors, the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year end 2022. The next slide, please. What I will be going over with is the compliance requirements of the annual audit and financial reports, a high overview of the financial highlights of the City of Deerfield Beach with a summary of the governmental activities and net position and the general funds fund balance and the financial results of the general fund, solid waste, utilities, and stormwater, some of the major funds. We have many funds, but just go over the major ones. And then go over the audit findings and comments, and then have our auditors, our auditor, Brandon Lopez, as director of Markham, to come up and give his report on the audit. Next, please. Okay. So the compliance requirements haven't changed. Still the same Florida statute that requires that we present the financials to the state within 45 days or 9 months, or no later than 9 months after the fiscal year end. And we have accomplished that. We are actually working to submit the report to the state of Florida as we speak now. The other submission requirements of the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, we've completed that and submitted. Other bond and debt continuing disclosures, as well as submission for the GFOA Financial Reporting Award. And the extensions have been granted as they usually do, month over month. The next slide, please. The financial highlights. So the city's overall government-wide, which includes the governmental funds, special revenues, enterprise funds, et cetera. They kind of lump it all together, give you really high overview of the entire state, the entire locality. Total assets increased by 12.1 million. And so what made up that increase is 3.6 million in capital assets as projects have been completed. They added to our inventory. And also approximately 9 million or so of cash from the ARPA. Of course, they give us that money in advance. And so there's the cash funding there as well. And then total liabilities decreased by 33.6 million. That is due to decrease 4.1 for due to other funds. I believe that was actually a reporting change that occurred there. And then unearned revenue of 2.8 decrease there. And then 7 million reduction in debt principal. We continue to pay off our debt as planned out. And then the next two are really important, the reduction in OPEB liability and pension liability. And those are important in particular when we start thinking about the potential for us to be taking out debt they look to our long-term liabilities and how we're managing those. And so that those are coming down quite nicely. So that's a good positive thing. And then the next thing is the governmental fund balances increased by 14.3 million. So I just kind of focus on the governmental fund pieces. So that does not include the enterprise funds. And so the 14.7 increase in assigned and unassigned is really related to the ARPA funding. That was about 10 million makes up that increase there. And then there was a 1.8 increase in the restricted non-major governmental funds, and that it kind of relates to the building permit as well as road and bridge. There was a slight increase there. And then the CRA also saw an increase of $1 million. And then there was a reduction in the general construction fund of 3.4 million, again, indicating the spend down of the loan proceeds or the bond proceeds in order to continue to move along on those capital projects. Next slide, please. So just an overall summary year over year. You won't see this in the report. It's only the fiscal year 2022 numbers, but this one gives you a trend, and you can see how the overall governmental activities, again, including all of our funds, general funds, special revenue funds, things like that, has improved over time. And so again, to deal due to the overall pension liabilities, the pay down of debt, the American Rescue Plan or ARPA funds, and the investment in capital assets. Those things have all improved. Next one. And so I'm just going to then focus now down onto several of the funds. I'll start with the general fund. And so the general fund balance, as it's lined out here for FY 2022, continues to be, is my time up?
No, you're not that lucky.
Sorry. So FY 2022, in comparison to the other years, but I'll focus on 2022. The non-spendable, which is basically the prepaids and investments, are about this, inventory is about the same year over year. Emergency reserve stayed the same. The subsequent year's budget, 11.41 million. That is the use of fund balance that we have planned for FY 2023. And you can find that number in your budget book on page 56 for FY 2023. So now that number can be pinpointed right where we actually got approved for it. And then the endowments are the same, then Tam O'Shanter is same. The unassigned fund balance did increase to 39.21 million. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. And so that's the makeup of the total fund balances. And then the next slide, please. And so the general fund balances, and I also am comparing it to the ratings as well. The unassigned fund balance of 39.2 million also includes the cash or the what, as they call it, the standard deduction of the $10 million that we received back into the general fund. And that was to reimburse for public safety expenses that we elected to do. But that $10 million is still part of the $16.3 million that the commission voted on as part of the ARPA spending plan back in November 2021, which was at the beginning of FY 2022, first quarter. And so in talking about that, I know it looks like it's gone up, but we already have plans to spend that down. And so the plan included these projects listed here, which is the West Deerfield Beach Stormwater Improvement, Southeast 8th Avenue Stormwater Improvements, the Park Improvements and Aquatic Center, Water Treatment Plant, Chemical Conversions, AMI, and the beach renourishment. So those dollars are being spent and will actually being spent down. And if those dollars were not there, the unassigned fund balance would have probably been around 29 million. And so even though right now we are up in the AAA grouping, we really are still down in the AA. And so, and then therefore total fund balance would have dropped from 54 to about 44, which is right spot on at the AA. And then those percentages as they are right now, if the 10 million wasn't there, we would still be a solid AA. All right. And these are just one measurements out of a number of measurements as we are going through for potential bond ratings and taking out debt in the next couple of years. Okay. Next slide. All right. So in compliance with our fund balance policy, we clearly are compliant of the 10% of the general fund expenditures plus transfers. We're well above that at the 39.21. One of the other things I wanted to point out here was that not only did we have the 11.4 million budgeted and as assigned for use into FY 2023, but during the month of May, we also had the fund FY 23 budget amendment done, in which we appropriated an additional 4.84 million out of the unassigned fund balance. And so, you know, if you take that out of the 39, it didn't happen at September 30th, but it afforded us the ability to be able to do that, which was 2.5 million for carry forwards related to various, especially park projects that were very important, as well as the 2.2 million that was transferred over to the solid waste to help shore up there and help to improve the fund balance, the fund itself. All right. And so best practice is approximately 15 to 18% of operating for operating reserves. And the 39.21 does not include the emergency reserve funds or the subsequent year budget, but it does include the ARPA funding, 10 million. Okay, next slide. And so here's where do a little summary of the general fund in the two approaches. One is financial statement approach. This is the way that is presented in the ACFR. And so the total, the final budget, and I just take the total for each one of the categories. So total revenue, actual results is 116.9 million, and total expenditures at 103 million, leaving an excess of 13.79. Transfers in of 10.5 million, which is the ARPA funding. Transfers out of 9 million gives us a contribution or net change in fund balance of 14.8 million. We budgeted use at 5.24. And so you would see that in the budget book as well. And fund for FY 2022, where we budgeted about 4.5 million. And then we had a budget amendment in February of 2022 for about 740,000, which gives us the 5.24 million. The next slide. Right. So here, this shows it. All I did was rearrange the line items to show it as a balanced budget approach. And when you do a balanced budget approach, you have to do the absolute value of the numbers. And so you take the exact same from one slide to the other, take the operating revenues, take the transfers in, take the use of fund balance, but we call it net change in fund balance for financial reporting purposes of the 5.24, and you have the total revenues or inflows at $140 million. And then you take the operating expenditures, take the transfers out, give a total expenditure of 140. There's your balanced budget approach. And then the actual results are still lined up the same way, but it's just the absolute numbers. Okay. So in case there's any questions, I know how that can be misleading and to the public to not be able to see it in the balanced budget approach. So moving on to the other funds. And so solid waste, this is when I looked at the solid waste fund, it's going in a very positive direction. So their revenues are constantly ticking up, which is very good. And their operating expenses are still ticking up as well, but they're more than able to cover it with the increase in the revenues. And so their total change in net position is about 2.23 million. Their which equated to a drop in their net deficit amount of 7.44 million. Now, this is before we do the 2.2 million in FY23. So we are really seeing a plan to improve the solid waste fund. And again, this is something where the bond and debt people that provide loans to us look at how we are managing our finances. And so it's not just a general fund. They look at how other funds are as well overall, making sure you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so here we definitely are showing a path for improvement for the solid waste fund. And I project that within probably FY 2024, it will have a positive net position. Next slide. So the utilities fund, again, looking very positive. It's in a good situation, a good setting. And so just one of the things is that the net position, just as a reminder, even though it's like $76 million, 51 million of that is capital. And so we have a lot of water treatment plants, a lot of asset. And so 51 million of that is there. The unrestricted net portion of the net position actually has dropped by $2 million from 24.5 to 22.4 in FY 2022. But this is just a summary of that and showing the improvement that they're holding their own. And then stormwater, last but not least, and again, is doing quite well, still hanging in there, and with the improvement in the revenue, it's covering its operating expenses. The net position has increased. And as we look at FY23 budget, we see that we are using some of that net position in order to fund some of those projects. And so now to cover the audit opinion findings and observations. Again, for FY 2022, we got a clean audit opinion, no different than any other year. And, but I am proud to say that we have no repeat findings for this year. In fact, we have no findings. If I could repeat that, we have no repeat findings. And that really is a testament to my team. And wanted to give them a shout out there for all of them, which is, the purchasing group that came in, lots of new folks, learned a lot, jumped right in, drinking from a fire hose, and handled a lot there, and the budget team as well, under Tamara Baker. And so she was still kind of handling both on helping and supporting the accounting group, even as she moved from the accounting over to budget. And want to give a last but not least is Ms. Sharon Haynes, the Assistant Director of Finance, who really managed this process from cradle to grave each year, and was not taking any prisoners this year and made it happen. I really have a tribute to her and her team in pulling this off. And so just wanted to give them a shout out. Really appreciate them all, including the departments and the commission and Dave Santucci as well. And so there's a couple of small observations as well. So the bank reconciliation, documentation of review date, We do reconcile 9 bank accounts each month. And so there was one bank account that we missed dating when it was reviewed. So we kind of, and it was only for 3 of the 12 months for that particular one. So that we have coached their employees and we're making sure that they're cross-trained going forward. So that was a slight oversight on our part. And then the solid waste fund, the deficit net position, that is an observation and it is a repeat observation. And as we talked about, we are doing things to make it under your direction, doing the things to improve the solid waste fund. And so before I turn it over to Brandon Lopez, I do encourage that you and the public read the letter of transmittal at the front of the ACFR, along with the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis. It gives a nice overview, high-level overview without going through all of the gajillion tables and things throughout the entire, probably 200 pages. All right. And unless there's any questions for me, I'm going to turn it over to Brandon.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Commission. First of all, I just want to thank Ms. Tinsley for her thorough presentation. Going through the numbers. I'm here today to present the ACFR for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2022. Before I get into all the reports, I just want to mention or go over something that Ms. Tinsley had discussed. And I don't know if you remember last year when I was here, you asked, what is Markham doing to assist the city, assist the finance team to make sure that they're meeting, the requirements. And I mentioned to you that obviously we need to make sure we keep our independence as the independent arms, but there's things that we can assist with. There's trainings that we could provide. Every year we do our government symposium, and Ms. Tinsley, Ms. Haynes and their whole team attended that. Last year as well, I spent about a week with the finance team, kind of going through some of the issues that we have been seeing year after year. What could they do to make sure that doesn't happen again? What are some of the adjustments and things to get ahead of the game before we come time for the audit? We spent all that time with management last year, in hopes that that information and that knowledge and that training would help them for this upcoming audit, because I don't want to stand here again this year without doing my best and giving them the tools that they need and that they could have. And we're going to go into all these reports, but I'm very happy to say, as Ms. Tinsley mentioned, there is no repeat findings in regards to the financial close. And that was really the last finding that we had. Over every year, we've been seeing improvement and we've been seeing some of the issues resolved. But the last one was in regard to the financial close and the timing of that financial close. And this year, the report has a May 31st date, which is a month ahead of last year. And we could have actually issued even earlier, but there were some things out of the city's control in regards to the pensions. Those are audited by other auditors and those are separate legal entities. And the city can't issue their reports until those plans have been issued. So there was some delays on their end, which kind of delayed it even more. I do think next year, with the continued work from the team, that we'll be even here to present a whole month in advance. So just wanted to make sure I express that before I get into everything. So I'm going to go through a high level overview of the report. And if there's any specific questions, I'll be there to answer them. So we're going to start with the most important part of this report is the independent auditor's report. And that's on printed page 1 of the document. And this, like Ms. Tinsley mentioned, it's an unmodified report. It's a clean opinion. And that's really the only opinion you as a commission and as a city want to be associated with. So we're very happy to let the city know it was a clean, unmodified opinion. It looks a little different this year, and that's because the auditing standards changed the way the audit reports are shown. And the biggest thing was that in the past, the opinion was at the end of the report. They decided to put that up front and center at the beginning because that's really the most important part of this whole document. So that's the change. But I wanted to express that because sometimes you might see a change. You might think, oh, the opinion changed. The opinion did not change. It was a clean opinion. I'm not going to go into too much detail of the numbers as Ms. Tinsley went into that. But one thing I do want to go into a little bit further detail. Ms. Tinsley expressed how there is a decrease in the net pension liabilities from last year to this year. And that has to do with the overall market conditions from year to year. because of the big component of that net pension liability is how are those assets of those pension plans performing? Normally you would think, well, September 30, 2022 was actually a down year compared to the prior year. But one thing to remember with GASB, they allow for pensions in the cities to report them on a 1-year lag. And the reason they do that is because that information takes time to get analyzed by the actuary and all that stuff. So it's actually reported on a 1-year lag. So the numbers that you're reported on September 30, 2022 are actually as of September 30, 2021. And if we can remember back then, as of that point in time, the markets performed significantly well. Next year, when we get to these numbers, we're going to see a reversal. Not as much as it used to be, but we're going to see a little bit closer liabilities to what was reported in the prior year. So there's still an improvement from year to year. It's just not that big of a swing that we see in this current year. So I just want to make sure, especially because that's always something different compared to other types of accounting that you would see. I always mention this audit is a twofold audit. It's a financial statement audit, but it's also a compliance audit. And there's several factors that go into that. There's the government auditing standards that are required for these types of audits, but also because the city receives federal funding. And whenever you receive federal funding and you spend above the threshold, which is $750,000, it triggers what's called a federal single audit. And there we take an approach where we have to look at certain major programs and we look at the expenses, make sure they're spent in accordance with the grant agreement, making sure that there's controls over that compliance. So we perform our testing, and I'm actually going to mention on printed page 152. It's called the Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. It gives the reader a overview of the financial statements, the type of opinion that was given, and if there were any findings, not just in the financial statements, but also in the compliance testing. And as you can see here, there were no such issues identified based on the procedures we performed. And it also lets the reader know what major program was it that we tested. And for the fiscal year ended September 30, 2022, it was the CARES Act that was tested. There's a couple other compliance reports, but the one thing I want to mention, I know Ms. Tinsley went into it, there was no findings. There were 2 observations and what's called a management letter comment. And we basically, what we think about is in the pursuit of perfection, not that it rises to the level of finding and that's why it's not reported as such, but something that, the city can improve on. And she mentioned the comment that we had was in regards to the bank reconciliations. And we noted that it's not that it wasn't being performed. It was just the documentation wasn't there. So anybody could verify how timely it was done. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the city does things, as best as they can, beyond approach. So we have decided to put that as a management letter comment, but not didn't rise to the level of a finding because at the end of the day, it was only one account out of the 9 that are reconciled, and that one account, it was only 3 months out of the 12. All the other months, it was documented and done in accordance with the city's policy. So that covers what I wanted to go through and highlight. But now I open up if there's any questions that you might have for myself.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to ask a question in this manner. Oftentimes when people with numbers and this report and that report can be somewhat confusing. So I'm just going to say it this way, ask the question this way. In plain English, are you satisfied or not satisfied?
As satisfied. And there's different ways to answer that. Number one, a clean opinion. Number two, one of the things that we're required to disclose is we're supposed to perform what's called a financial condition assessment of the city. And the Auditor General provides us with a listing of how you're doing, plus how you're doing against your peers. And you do a comparison of a 5-year trend. And based on all the different cities, how did the city perform based on all that information? And if there's any issues identified after that assessment, we'd be required to disclose that in writing to the city and also to the state. But based on the procedures performed, no such issues were identified. So am I satisfied? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I believe so.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. And again, I just want to make sure we give credit where credit is due. They put in the hard work, and that's why we're here today with this report and these no findings this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Tinsley, I will say this. Last year, it's been frustrating the last few years. This is the first time since I've been in office that we have had no findings in a CAPA. First time since 2009 when I first got into office. That is outstanding to only have 2 observations. I hope you guys will stop drinking from a fire hose, but I appreciate what you guys have done and your hard work on this and your entire team. So thank you, Mr. Santucci, all of you. I appreciate that and glad to see we're in the spot that we're in. So thank you very much. Excellent job. Before we go, I think we're looking for a motion for acceptance, correct? No, not yet. I'm about to. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item?
Dan Hurst, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I too would like to congratulate Ms. Tinsley and her whole team on a clean audit and opinion. The mayor is correct. You can remember the days when there were 2 pages full of issues. We'll leave it at that. There is just a couple quick things I do want to point out. There is a typo mistake on page 133. It's in the 2022 column. The numbers are completely out of whack on that column, so I don't know if you can still change it, but when you go there, it'll be pretty obvious. You can see what I'm talking about. The other thing was just a question also on, I couldn't really find out where these days we're investing all our excess cash because, again, it's great. We have more excess cash on hand than we've had in quite a long time. And I was just curious what we're investing it in, what kind of interest rates we're getting anecdotally. And I know it's different for consumer versus commercial, but consumer money markets are paying over 5% these days. So I hope we're at least getting close to something like that on our idle balances. I did have one other specific question. It's just on the on page 142, it talks about the full-time equivalent water and sewer employees. And it was a drop from 104 in the end of fiscal year 21 to 64 employees at the end of 22. So I didn't know if something got reclassified or something. And then the same thing on the solid waste. It went from 69 employees in 21 down to 60 in 22. The other just observations I wanted to make on page 125, it shows that all revenues, every single category of revenues was up between 21 and 22, and it averaged 12%. So I think that is something very interesting, and I think that will continue. And then on page 100, on the other flip side of that is the expenditures. There were 15 categories listed, and on all 15 categories, the city was over budget, actual versus what they had budgeted for. And I know that obviously a lot of that is due to inflation, but when you're 15 out of 15, I just didn't know if there was something else at play there that was contributing to the all 15 categories being over budget. But again, congratulations to Ms. Tinsley, and it's very wonderful and refreshing to see that no more issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I'm going to close it to the public.
What are we approving? It says right here, just accepting.
We're making a motion to accept it. Is that correct? Yeah.
Second.
A motion from Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 12 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving and adopting the schedule of stormwater utility rates attached as Exhibit A, effective October 1, 2023 through September 30th, 2028, consistent with the previously adopted 5-year stormwater funding strategy, establishing the value of an equivalent resident unit, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Mr. Santucci.
Thank you, Mayor. Lost my screen here. Give me 1 second. So back in December of 2022, we came before the City Commission, presented the stormwater master plan as well as the rate recommendations in order to complete that strategy. Many of the projects that this fund and the fees will support were described to you and talked about during the budget workshops just last week. At that same time in December, the city staff made a recommendation to move the stormwater utility fees onto the tax roll rather than the utility bill. That was denied by the City Commission at the December meeting. So this item simply is the legal requirement to effectuate those rates onto the utility bill for FY24.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item?
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I thought it was very interesting. The consultant that the city hired stated that the only reason that he put in an operating 120-day operating cash reserve was because it was at the request of the city. This was not an idea for the consultant. It was an idea that the city wanted in there. So if I understand this correctly, this $545,000 operating cash reserve. So we now need a reserve for stormwater on top of the $39 million general fund reserve. So we have a reserve on top of a reserve. So the next question is I take it now that the road and bridge fund are no longer going to be funding any more capital improvements for the stormwater projects. And also, as Ms. Tinsley just pointed out a few minutes ago, since we are getting ARPA money from the federal government on stormwater capital improvement projects, is it possible to get an exact dollar amount as to how much of that ARPA money is going specifically towards stormwater capital improvement projects? And just a little history here. Before 2018, we didn't even have a stormwater fee, not a tax, a fee. So now we have a 27% increase between what we're paying now and what's going to go on in fiscal 24. And between what we're paying now and the last fiscal year of fiscal 2028, it is an 82% increase in the stormwater fee. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, is there a requirement to have to repay the $2.2 million loan to the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund? Because it seems to me we're taking money out of our left pocket and putting it back into our right pocket. So unless there is a legal requirement, which then I perfectly understand why, I'm questioning why that needs to happen. And then the final thing is, I'm not an expert on this, but when they were talking in the backup about the how much, one ERU for a single family home, I'm just trying to question the logic why a condominium is at 0.43 ERUs, because I would think logically that there's many condominiums on a smaller lot size. So the effect of the condominium's usage of stormwaters should be a much lower percentage than 0.43. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? I'm going to close it to the public then. Mr. Santucci, can we answer some of the questions that were brought up?
Certainly. So 120 operating cash reserve, I think they were looking to be between 90 and 120. I certainly can't speak to what Mr. Hearns saw in the report as a claim that was not a recommendation by the consultant, that the city somehow perhaps made that up. We certainly wouldn't come up with some sort of cash reserve based off of some arbitrary figure, that's for sure. And to also say that the stormwater reserve fund is separate from the general fund. The stormwater fund is a separate enterprise fund in the same way that the utility fund is a separate fund from the general fund. They have different purposes, different business operations. So yes, a separate reserve fund is required for the stormwater fund, in the same way that the solid waste fund must have a separate reserve fund, now in the negative, which is the current observation in the ACFR report, so that we can build back that enterprise funds reserve fund. No, the Road and Bridge Fund does not fund stormwater projects. The Road and Bridge Fund does not have a whole heck of a lot of money for the roadway needs of the city. In addition, roadway funding is for really what you see above ground. The stormwater fund is for stormwater needs. The utility fund is for your water and wastewater needs. There were some, luckily we were able to use ARPA funding for some of our stormwater projects, which was really helpful to be a catalyst to get some of those, the top 4 projects in the stormwater master plan underway, specifically 8th Ave in over by the middle school. And then of course, Deer Run, which is a neighborhood that floods in its entirety in some of our most severe storms. So I don't know the exact dollar amount of stormwater projects that were funded by ARPA, but we do have that most likely available on our website, and we do give periodic updates on that. But those projects are in excess of several $1 million. The $2.2 million loan from the utility fund to the stormwater fund was strategic so that we could get some of these projects on the stormwater fund moving forward. But we will be paying that back to the utility fund, and that is accounted for. And the ERU calculations are done by consultants, not staff. So I really can't speak to how they come up with the 0.3 percentage point on the residential unit, but that is something that I'm sure passes legal muster in terms of the ERU calculations, and very common amongst stormwater calculations done in this manner.
Thank you. Commission?
Motion to approve.
Second,
Motion from Commissioner Preston, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 13 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the ranking for invitation to negotiate number 23-02 PC for the lease of the City Pier Restaurant, authorizing concurrent lease negotiations with the 2 top-ranked proposers, LM Cove LLC and Deerfield Beach Cafe LLC, providing for implementation and an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, David Santucci, City Manager. The item before you this evening relates obviously to the Pier Restaurant lease. And our current lease will expire within the next, I believe the date is, it's either October 1st or October 30th. Please don't quote me on that. But we are moving forward at the direction of the City Commission with a new solicitation. In response to that solicitation, we received 3 proposals. And through an evaluation process consisting of city staff as well as a non-voting member who was the city brought on as a restaurant consultant to provide their expert analysis, not only our scope of work, but of the proposals we received, and they will also be assisting us with the negotiation process. They were able to provide a little bit of their expert analysis to our evaluation committee, so that when they were evaluating the proposals, they had some of that, insider behind the scenes knowledge base of restaurants to assist them with. So through those negotiations, or excuse me, not negotiation, but the evaluation process, the proposals were individually ranked by each one of the evaluation committee members. They met to evaluate those proposals and made the decision to allow all three firms to come back for presentations and address specific things that the evaluation committee wanted to get clarification on. Those presentations were provided and held at Central City campus. Those were open to the public, but not each proposer, to ensure that each proposer was able to provide a presentation that would not have been, obviously seen by each one, and providing an unfair advantage. At the conclusion of those presentations, the negotiation committee reconvened in a public meeting and re-ranked the firms. And through that ranking, there were two proposers whose scores were higher and very close, and a third that was not as close, obviously, as the first two. The committee made a motion to rank the firms, making the number one ranked firm, the second ranked firm, and the third ranked firm, as you can see in your backup documentation. And that's what they're required to do to provide to the city commission. The additional recommendation that I have is to begin negotiations concurrently with the top two ranked firms. And the reason why that is because, based on the ranking and the point structure that you can see that the first two were fairly close and were able to do concurrent negotiations with 1, 2. I would not recommend all three at the same time, but I do recommend concurrent negotiations with the top ranked firms. Does that mean that we'll come back to the city commission with two negotiated contracts for consideration by the city commission? Maybe, but not certainly, because negotiations with one of these firms or both of these firms could potentially, not result in a negotiated contract. There were some vast differences between each one of the proposals that the number one and the number two ranked proposers provided, in terms of, I think their vision of what that restaurant could be, and making sure that that vision aligns with the original scope of services, which again aligned with what the commission's direction was in terms of what they'd be willing to explore and wanted to see out of a restaurateur and a proposed new lease. So that's a little bit of background. I've told you what the recommendation was from the evaluation committee in terms of the ranking, which is before you to accept, and also my recommendations to authorize myself and a negotiation team appointed by me to do concurrent negotiations with the top two ranked firms. And additionally, we have Mr. Tom DeGiorgio, who was the consultant and is our consultant on this project, who can answer any specific questions that you may have that I may not be able to answer for you. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commission comments before I open to the public. Commissioner Hudak.
I've looked at the backup and I'm very impressed with the presentations. I want to say that I personally know the leaders of both of those organizations, and they're both top-notch individuals, and they both run top-notch organizations. And I'd be proud to be associated with either one of them. So I would be in favor of this type of a negotiation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the, pardon? Okay. Vice Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, David, is there anybody on the negotiating committee or evaluating committee that is currently or has been in the restaurant business?
So again, Vice Mayor, the negotiation team will be made up of city staff as well as representation from the city attorney's office, who does have experience with negotiating these types of lease agreements. But additionally, the city has brought on a consultant who is very familiar with the restaurant industry, His name is Mr. Tom DeGiorgio. He is on the call this evening, and be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. You've answered my question.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that care to comment on this item?
Hello, my name is Alex Pappas. I live at 3000 South Heights Road, Davie, Florida. I would like to make the request that the negotiations be open to the top 3 bidders rather than just the top 2. That's my request.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Hi. Maria Larico, 1551 Southeast 12th Street. So, love the location. What an asset we have in Deerfield Beach. It's a gem. I don't know what we're looking at as taxpayers in the form of revenue. So, are there contracts? Do you have any idea of, are you looking for a flat fee? Is there renewables? And, you know, I did make mention with the Kiwanis that I didn't like the arrangement that that Dan Hers spoke about. And I just don't want to see that happening again, specifically, say a very lengthy lease with a renewable, with a non-compete, those kind of things, you know. Also, on a personal side, is it required that it serves breakfast, lunch, dinner? Are we looking at ethnic food, any, you know, high end, any price points, any continuity that you can give us, just so that we know what kind of restaurant. And again, also, I have someone that was excluded out of the bidding, or never knew where to go to look for it, the bid that was up. So can you please tell me where you would find that? I went myself on and I wasn't able to find it. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street, Deerfield Beach, Florida, 33441. Wow, this one's a tough one. Transparency is key to bidding. And I don't feel that is the case in this situation. I feel that the city has been at odds with the current leasing, and I don't understand why, and that is a shame. Regarding the vision of the current leasing, you need only review the engineered drawings that they are already paid for to see where this location can go. I'm not sure exactly where the 2 top bidders are estimating to put $3.2 million and $2.4 million into this location, not changing a single square foot of it. It would only be on the inside, the potential awning that the leasee has asked for years to be provided to expand on, and they were told we could not do that. They could not change. They could not put up any sails. They couldn't do anything to utilize the space around it or to provide protection for any of their diners that chose to sit outside at a table and chairs. I'm not sure where they're going to put $3.2 million or $2.4 million for that matter, with staying within the exact footprint that the building has currently. I know that the third bidder did provide a proposal to only put and include $244,000 with the concept of putting a new lounge, bar, dining area on the second floor. I think the Blue Wave idea is a phenomenal idea, and I definitely think it's something that really needs to be looked at through the city with indeed the connection of the fishing pier next door. The drawings that the leasee has provided include connecting the fishing pier and putting a second floor on top of that, which would enhance the whole entire area. It would make it so much better than it could ever be in the past. And even if the city decides not to, and I really hope that they would consider utilizing to really negotiate with all three of the bidders. I really hope that they would negotiate with all three of the bidders and not cut out the current leasee, as they do have the most knowledge for that working location. They have provided all the sales, they've provided all the financial information for that location. And I don't believe that either one of the top two bidders provided all the
Ms.
financial
Freitag, would you like
information.
another minute?
Yes, please. I would hope that they would definitely consider that the difference, again, that the top two bidders consider putting in 3.2 million and 2.4 million opposed to 244,000. I think there's a big gap there, and I do believe that there is something missing in the wording of the bid, and potentially that's something that can be discussed again moving forward with all three bidders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daniel Shanetsky, 34 Keswick B, Deerfield Beach, 33442. I want to stress the importance of the City Pier Restaurant. The City Pier Restaurant is in a prime spot. It's right, as you know, it's right next to the Deerfield Beach Pier. It's right on the esplanade, the walking esplanade of Deerfield Beach. It's the prime jewel of Deerfield Beach. It's a showcase of Deerfield Beach. When you think of the Empire State Building, when you see the Empire State Building, you think of Manhattan. When you see an image of the Golden Gate Bridge, you think of San Francisco. Well, I think the same thing with the City Pier Restaurant. We have to make sure that it's unique, because the far-reaching effects of the City Pier Restaurant will have far-reaching effects to Deerfield Beach's economy, to the tourism of Deerfield Beach, and to the image of Deerfield Beach. We need to be careful to be able to balance bringing in tourists, accommodating the Deerfield Beach families for this establishment, and making it attractive for both the young and old citizens of Deerfield Beach. That's why I think that we should have a more of a public forum, because I equate the City Pier Restaurant with the discussion we had on FAU research project, far-reaching effects. I think we should have a forum or a town hall, just like we did with FAU, so that the public could give input, the public could get involved, and the public could shape what this City Pier Restaurant could have effects in the future of Deerfield Beach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. Mr. Shanetsky is absolutely right. This is one of the crown jewels of the city. This is the city bus benches times 100. And the same logic that applied on those bus benches has to be used here as well. Now, regarding the information, in all my years of coming here, I have never seen a package so bereft of critical information. First of all, did you know that that LM Cove LLC does not exist? Well, finally, 20 minutes before this meeting, I find out it's not LM Cove. The name of the entity is LMR Cove LLC. And all through the entire presentation is this mistake. So now when you go on Sunbiz and you find LMR Cove LLC, you find who it is. It's Elias Moshakas, who owns the just recently renovated Cove Restaurant. And I'll explain in a minute why that's important. And then look at the other entity, Deerfield Beach Cafe LLC. This entity was created on April 5th of this year. The managing member of this LLC is the Daniel Rossi Revocable Trust. Now, I own real estate in a trust, and I can tell you that it is essential information to know who is the trustee of the trust and who are the beneficial interests of the trust. And you should have in your backup to make a decision a copy of the trust agreement, which is lacking. Now, let's get to some other things that are not in the package. How come the public is not allowed to see each company's financial statements? The existing operator has financials that they are required to provide to the city. At the very least, these financials would provide some insight to the commissioners and taxpayers on whether the annual lease payments can be made. And in the backup, in this one sheet at the very end of the backup, it says that both Deerfield Beach Cafe and LMCO LLC have strong financials. Well, if you're putting it in here, then why can't the citizens see those financial statements? And I would think that would be essential information for the commissioners when making a decision on that. Now, there's more. So also, I'm not an expert on restaurants. I don't claim to be, but I am pretty good with common sense. So how can these two restaurants compete with Oceans 2, 3, 4, and 2 Georges? May I have another minute?
Sure.
Okay. The concept that only one that would make any sense to me that would work would be a fast casual type, because that way you don't have to spend a ton of money on build out, but you can still do the things that the commission has in their foresight for this. But you're going to make money on the drinks and lower cost food options compared to Ocean 2, 3, 4, and 2 Georges. And then finally, the criteria that was used, I can't understand it. In fourth place is the amount of money that the city will get paid in rent. That's in fourth place. Inexcusable. And I wish I could get an explanation as to why that is the 4 out of 5 criterias that are in this backup. There are so many things here that don't make sense. Much more work and effort needs to be put in before a decision this important can be made. And I hope the commissioners will listen to me. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Are we allowing some of the bidders that put in to actually comment?
I guess anybody from the public has the right to comment for public comment for 3 minutes, Mayor.
Ms. Samani, go right ahead.
Good evening, Tula Amana, Davie. I live in Davie. I wish I'd lived in Deerfield Beach, but for the past 10 years, I ran the Deerfield Beach Cafe. And I want to thank the city and the residents for the way that they have treated me all this time. They were amazing. I want to thank also all the other people at the city that assisted us, especially during a pandemic and a major hurricane. Thank you very, very much. I would like to, apart from thanking everybody and congratulating Mr. Moshakos and also Daniel Rossi, I'd just like to make a distinction, because when the agenda came out, I got a few congratulatory emails. The Deerfield Beach Cafe LLC, just to make it clear, has nothing to do with the existing restaurant operations right now. This is Danielle's actual company. So if she would like the name, of course, I would be very honored to continue that tradition, and the name, and keep it alive. We put a lot of effort and our hearts into it for the past 10 years. So I would like to also understand where did I go wrong, because I could have given quite a bit more money. I had mentioned to the city that at least $1 million is needed in order to bring the restaurant to the rightful where it belongs, like enclosing the top floor and putting more air conditioning. So you can have the events at all kinds of weather, but I was told no signage on the building facing west other than the monument sign. So, you know, I could have put more money in the building. I'm sorry that I read everything. It seems that the scope was, I must have underestimated. Of course, we did put about 315,000 first, even though we had pledged 80,000 back in 2013, we ended up putting 315 then. So whatever was needed, we did. I would have liked to have a little more consideration, actually, in case you change your mind. My bid for the city income was a minimum of 252,000. Annual income to the city, plus about 60,000 in taxes that the entire building will bring as income to the city. And I see that the other two bidders, even though they pledged millions of dollars, I could not match Danielle's 2.3 or Mr. Moshako's 3.8 million. No way. So,
Ms. Amana, we'll give you one more minute. Go right ahead.
thank you so much. But I do think that if they pledge that kind of money, I see why the annual income to the city is to a level of 52,000 less than us for Mr. Moshako and 90,000 less for Danielle. So I just want to thank you again and wish everybody the best. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Amana. Anyone else from the public? No, I'm going to close it to the public then. Mr. Santucci, any comments?
Sure. I can, I think I can address some of these things. Just trying to catch everyone's comments as they spoke. The scope of work was included with the backup documentation in here. It does speak to the type of restaurant the city is looking for, which is consistent with what the scope of services were the first time around, being family friendly, affordable, whatever affordable in a restaurant may mean today. Additionally, you know, what type of menu offering in generality we'd be looking for. It talks about the lease fee arrangement. It talks about the lease term. But consider that this is an invitation to negotiate for a reason, so that we can negotiate the terms in a final draft lease agreement to be presented to the city commission. There was a comment that they can't possibly invest that amount of money into the building. Just bear in mind that there was some discussions with the city commission about things that we have learned as we've gone along, not only from the current leasee, but from the public and from others who may be interested and have shown interest into this lease property for a restaurant, that we should consider the balcony. And there were some comments from the commission about how would that work. We don't want to, you know, have that as being not available to the public at all times, but the balcony is also included. So there's improvements to the balcony. There's also the investment into the restaurant interior and exterior itself, as well as a shade structure that would be installed on the outdoor lease portion. That has also been requested, and we've consistently we've seen that. So, you know, in terms of what these restaurateurs are willing to put into the building is an investment into their operation and into the Deerfield Beach asset itself. And I can't really speak to, you know, exactly what that may, you know, a line item of what $2.2 million or $3 million investment looks like at this point. But of course, Again, we're asking to negotiate with these firms where we can actually learn a little bit more. Public input on the restaurant, that's obviously very, very important. But until we are able to bring something forth that shows, final design elements, final menu elements, lease terms, lease payments, I don't see us being in a very strong position to get a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. I think that the scope of the project, along with the input that we have requested from the city commission and public meetings, has provided us a framework in which staff can begin to develop the negotiation strategy with the firms that we end up negotiating with, that we can then come back in a public forum and get that public input with more answers than we obviously have today. That we have not begun negotiations with any firm at this point. The city commission, you did receive the full packages of the proposals. Those full packages did include all the financial information. I understand that that is not in the backup material for the RFP as presented within this agenda item. And the fact of the matter is that there are new requirements out there that require us to have everything published through our website to be ADA remediated. And that has caused us to really have to scale back a lot of what we put in the backup agenda. But you'll notice that this is always available by public record and easily obtainable for anyone in the public who wants to see the full proposals. We can certainly provide that. I believe I've covered everything, Mayor and Commission. If I've missed something, or please point it out, or if you have an additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But I know that the city attorney also has a comment.
I just wanted to address the comment regarding the availability of financial statements. Florida statutes was amended a few years ago to change the definition of trade secret to specifically reference financial information. So I don't know if they marked them confidential or took steps to keep them confidential, but that may be why, if you made a request, you didn't receive them. I don't know if you made a request or not. So I just wanted to put that out there.
There was a comment about why the amount of money the city would be getting came in fourth.
Obviously, we're at a phase where we're evaluating them based off of an initial proposal, which through the ITN, we're going to negotiate to include the price. So for the purposes of getting to this stage, it wasn't as important because price will be negotiated. We don't have to take the price that they have given us in their initial proposal.
Okay, I think that's what I have here. The terms and everything, I mean, looking at what's online here, that's all there. It's all in the backup. You can go online and look at it. And I will say this, if you're a restaurateur and you don't know how to find out how to bid on this, and your extent is, I've tried to look online, I couldn't find it, and you don't think to maybe make a phone call, don't bid. You have no business doing this. If that's the extent of your effort, is I tried to look online, I couldn't figure out where we bid on this, and that's all you did, probably not the right thing for us to move forward. I was here when we did this the first time, when we rebuilt it and we put it in and went through all of that. That was not a fun process, I will tell you that right now. But there is going to be plenty of opportunity for the public to have input and to see some of the designs and things that are coming forward, just like we're all going to be able to see that. But I think it is, and I think part of the problem with not going with all three is there are some issues with what was submitted by the third bidder. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. Unfortunately, the proposer ranked number 3 did not provide a complete operational plan by the deadline that it was due, and requested to submit additional documentation after the fact. On top of that, during the presentations, there were specific items that the that the evaluation committee wanted the presenters to address. And unfortunately, the third ranked proposer was not able to answer and provide all that information within the time frame allotted to them for the presentations.
Thank you. Commissioner. Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I mean, this is the proposals here. It's not light reading, to say the least. And when you go through it, the top two bidders, I mean, they ranked them, but they could have easily been 1A and 1B. You could flip the order very easily. So while I don't know if I can recall any situation in the 7 years I've been up here where we've done concurrent lease negotiations, I'm not saying we haven't, but if we do, it's not very often. But they're so close. And this is the city manager's recommendation. I don't have an issue with that. Maybe it's a way to kind of separate them a little bit further or to get more clarification and get that public comment going forward, but they're so close. I don't have any problems with this in this situation. Most of the times the points, you can tell, there's a difference between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but this, like I said, could be 1A and it could be 1B very easily. So I'm okay with this, and maybe that'll help weed this out going forward.
Commissioner Preston.
I just wanted to ask the city manager, at some point, do you sit down with the other entities that were applying for this?
Commissioner, your question was, at some point, did I sit down with the entities? No, I don't. I'm not part of the evaluation committee. I did sit in on the presentations because I want to learn more about what was being proposed, but I'm not, I didn't, other than stating my name at those meetings, I don't participate.
Okay, so then the selection committee won't talk to any, just the top 2, correct? That's what we're doing.
My recommendation is to once the commission makes a determination this evening, the evaluation committee's job will be done, and then I will establish a separate negotiation committee.
Okay.
And they will work with they will negotiate further.
I'll make a motion to approve the city manager's recommendation to negotiate with the top 2.
Vice Mayor Parnas.
Oh, is it?
Commissioner Parnas, or excuse me, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to comment. Being a former restaurateur in New York, people say you can't spend $2 million to build a restaurant. Have never built one. It is extremely expensive. The equipment required for safety, for cleanliness, the Ansel systems alone are a fortune. I looked at, I don't know how many people here have eaten at the Cove recently, but they just went through a huge renovation. And when you go inside and sit down, you don't see much of a difference. Looks to me almost like the same, but they spent a lot of money improving their restaurant, probably in their kitchen. It's an expensive proposition, and running a restaurant is expensive. The cost, I mean, things you learn, like how much can your rent be? How much food costs? I worked for Reese Brothers in New York. I ran Lindy's in Grand Central Station. It was the first restaurant I ever managed. I was not allowed to have a liquor percentage over 17%, nor food costs over 32%. If I had 2 weeks in a row where the food cost was more than that, I was looking for a job. That's how close it is. Well, people who are in the business and want to put a place up or take over a restaurant and represent Deerfield Beach and say they're going to put in a lot of money into the restaurant, believe it, because it's an expensive proposition. And people say, well, I don't know how they can put 2 million. Well, then you've never built a restaurant. So I think that the mayor and the commission has done the right thing by opening it up to see what other possibilities there are to enhance it. And I think the committee is doing a good job. And I think the mayor has the right to negotiate to see what's actually involved with each case before they bring it to us for a vote. To say this guy or that guy, or neither of the two of them. So I am for this proposal. Somebody wanted to make a motion, I'd be happy to second it.
Well, we have a motion on the table, and I will say this, I'm not gonna do any negotiations, so that's not falling on me. It is, look, here's the bottom line, this is what I don't get. You guys want us, you talk about non-competes and go out there, we put it out to anybody who wants to bid on this. That's what you want. It's what you just asked for. Is there non-competes? Is there something like that? We don't like what we did with Kiwanis. We put it out in the market and we get 3 really outstanding people that brought it forward. Well-known restaurateurs. Common sense. Do you have to look at Sunbiz to not know that you have 3 extremely successful restaurateurs who are right here in Deerfield Beach and have been for decades? You got to go on Sunbiz to figure that out. Wow. I don't know where the common sense came in there, but to me, I've got 3 stars that just presented. 2 of the 3 seem to be up above the first one. I was here for the original thing that came forward. I think we had 4 presentations. I think 4 is what we had. I can't remember now exactly. We had BurgerFi. We had the original people that had it was there. We went through all that. And I can show you the renderings and negotiations of what that restaurant was supposed to be that I voted for. And what we have now are very different than what was submitted. Extremely different. So look, this gives us the opportunity to negotiate this with 2 excellent restaurateurs and figure out what is going to be the best fit and what kind of changes we can make to really take advantage of what I agree with. One statement is it is a gem of a location, but I think this is the right thing to do. I do support the motion that's been made of negotiating with the first two that are on here.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. I just want to clarify, you said motion to approve the manager's recommendation. The concurrent negotiations are built into the item currently before you. So do you want to make a motion on the item? Okay, it's a motion to approve. Thank you.
Motion, we're looking for a second.
Second.
Did you? Okay. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can we do roll call?
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
Item number 14 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving a change order with Shift Construction and Development, Inc. in the amount of $139,563.22 based upon Sourcewell, Inc. job order contract number FLR 10 GC 02111821 SCD to amend the scope of work to include additional improvements to the West Community Center for a total project cost of $720,161.72, providing for execution and effective date.
Thank you, Mayor and City Commissioners. Terry Reiner with Parks and Recreation Department. This is how it works. Joseph and Priscilla do all the work, and then I get up and tell you how great it is. As you know, this project's been underway for several years. You awarded the main contract on August 16th of 2022. And since that time, there have been a few changes, and I think all changes for the positive. During the permit process, there was an additional asbestos test that was required. That's kind of a very small amount of this 139 on the change order for that removal and mitigation. More importantly, public safety, Rodney and his team and myself and Joseph met out there several times to determine what the best use of that space is in addition to the plan that was originally there. One of the things that was determined, it was important to harden the facility in terms of windows and hurricane doors. And the thing that was most important to me was to create more visibility. If you've been in that facility, I think most of you have, There's a long hallway without any doors or windows. And from a programmatic perspective, that was going to be challenging for us because it will be a community center, hopefully with the intention is middle school teens and also daytime programming and community meetings. So opening up those hallways in terms of visibility was very important. And then the idea of having kind of this West Service Center for public safety and code compliance was also very important. Once the estimate was sent to us, there was a lot of evaluation that was done to make sure that because the contractor already had the contract, that we weren't getting a bad deal. I know, again, Priscilla and her team were very thorough and very determined to do what was in the best interest of the city, looked at the schedule of values and agreed that the 139,000 change order was adequate and not an over expense for the city. Timeline. Yeah, we're looking at, they actually started last week on the original contract purchase order that you had already approved, and final completion should be somewhere around Thanksgiving. Again, this is an opportunity for us to have, like currently our community, our summer camp at Constitution filled up just like that with 50 kids. That's as many as we can cram in there. This will give us an opportunity to have more space for that, for after school programs, for teens, particularly middle school, which kind of fall in that between after school and between the teen center, and an opportunity for some daytime programming, particularly around the adult fitness area. So any questions?
I do not. I don't see any.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Drosky?
I don't have any questions. I'm just glad this is moving along. Finally, it's been closed a long, long time. If you wanted a textbook example of government, how not to do a project, this has to be it. This has been way, way, way too long. So I'm finally glad to see it getting moving. It was way before your time, Terry, so that's not a criticism of
Nope.
you. It's probably way before anybody in this room, but it has just gone on way too long.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Anyone online? Going to close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Drosky, seconded by Commissioner Preston. All roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 15 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the award of invitation to bid number 23-15-BA for the rehabilitation of Floridan aquifer raw water wells at the West Water Treatment Plant, authorizing the execution of an agreement with Lane Christensen Company, the lowest price responsive and responsible bidder, in an amount not to exceed $942,662.07, providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Commission, Vice Mayor, Mayor. My name is Steve Urich. I'm the Assistant Director of Environmental Services. This is one of those things that has a price tag on it. That we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. We have a Floridan well that is for our reverse osmosis system. It's not out of the Biscayne aquifer. It's a deeper aquifer. It's more salty. We've been using it for quite a while, but it has not been performing to the original design specifications. So we had an opportunity to bid for that in order to have the well redeveloped. We got 3 bids that came in. One of them was about $700,000 less than the next highest bidder. Both of the other 2 were a little bit higher. You always want to take a look at that when you have that. You always want to take a look when you have those differences. And first off, Lane Christensen is very much a respected company in this area. They've done similar work of similar nature successfully. In the industry, we say that people have sharper pencils. And this is one of those cases where they did. There is a lot of work in the area. And so people are bidding to have a premium on that because there is so much work out there. There are more profitable things, drilling new wells, things like that, that these other companies were bidding. Basically, if I make enough money, I'll do the work. Lane Christensen has come in at what is traditionally the price point for these. If you dig into the points that they did, in just a moment, there's some key differences that really don't make much difference in the work itself. The mobilization and the demobilization, for instance. Lane Christensen was $11,000. The next closest bidder was $175,000. And that's just to get the equipment to the site and away from the site. And that's per well. There's 2 wells in question. We also have the installation of a test pump, just the installation itself, $5,000 versus $75,000. And on the wellhead installation, which is where they do the testing equipment and the ability to introduce the work, was $3,500 versus $22,500. If you take all of that together, you end up with $500,000 difference between the first and the next closest bidder out of a $700,000 difference. Most of that is in those few items. Lane Christensen knows what they're doing. They know how much it costs to mobilize and demobilize their equipment. They basically have just said, I want this work. The other companies have said, I want the work, but only if you pay me a premium.
Thank you. Questions?
If that is the case, then I'm very happy. But you know, and you're convinced that this is a good position for us, that's good. But I recall a situation recently that we had where a bidder came in so under that it aroused some suspicions. And sure enough, when it came time to do the work, the person didn't want to do the work because he knew he had underbid everybody. And so if we're not going to fall into a situation like that, then I'm happy. However, I'm cautious of that. You know, when people, you have 2 or 3 bidders and they're all in a certain area, but you know, you did a good job of explaining it. But you know, like as I said, a recent encounter with this same sort of a scenario didn't work out just like it was being presented.
And I understand your concern, and that's one of the reasons that I did the granular dive into the different aspects of the bid. Like I said, the mobilization of the equipment, they know what it takes to bring their trucks to site. This is not the first time that they bid this. This is a very common type of work. They bid it out at 11,000. Is that low? Yes, but they know what they're doing. They wanted the work. There's other areas where they're going to make up that money. But $175,000 to bring the trucks in to do the work, that's excessive. And they're just not hungry for that job. To give you an idea of how variable this can be based on competition, when I first started my career, there's a aspect called mechanical integrity testing of wells. There used to be one company that did all of that work down here. When there was just one company, it was $260,000 per well. 5 years later, when there were 3 companies, it was $60,000 per well for the exact same work. And it's worth mentioning that company that did most of that work did not even bother submitting a bid. That's how much work is out there.
Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the first question is, when were these wells first drilled? Why are they underperforming? Was it a design flaw? Was it the first contractor did not live up to their, what they were supposed to do? Can you give us a little background on that?
I would not like to speculate onto the specific reasons, but they're producing too much sand is what's happening. So we're not able to run them at the full flow rate. There's a number of reasons that could be. I don't have the engineering report in front of me, so I don't want to speculate on that without having that, but I can get you that information. And I'd be more than happy to
When were they
provide that to
first
you.
drilled?
They have been in operation for a number of years. I'm not entirely positive at the what year they were put in, but they have been in place for, I believe, about 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
It actually goes back longer than that. And I have a question on that. The West Wellfield that we're doing, this is along 10th Street, right?
This is the Florida Aquifer. There's FA1 and FA2.
Right. So is this the one that's off 10th Street there with the building that we have?
I'm honestly, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, Priscilla. I want to make sure I have the right facility. Yes, that's the one. That's what I thought. Yeah, and I think it's about 10 years old. I want to say.
Yeah, and actually I have Josh on the line. Josh, I think you have the whole engineering report in front of you there, but I think one of these wells is a pre-existing well that was reused and the other one was drilled when they did the RO. Is that correct?
Josh, you might be on mute.
We can't hear you, Josh. And this is our water plant manager.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now.
Very good. So the wells were drilled originally in 2009. FA1 originally was an aquifer recharged well, which basically we pumped water back into the well aquifer as a recharge well. And we went to rehab that, I believe it was in 2013. Somewhat successful, but not to the point where we could pump at adequate rates to the design of the auto plant. And then, yes, the other well, FA2, is located on Southwest 10th Street. And we have been talking with FDOT as far as what the, future looks like with that well and how we'll be able to continue running that with the expansion of the Southwest 10th Street project.
And just to be clear on that, there is a requirement that they keep a clearance of 100 feet from our wells. So FDOT cannot impact our water supply. So there are limitations on what they're permitted to do in and around our wells. But this is in order for us to reduce the amount of sand and to make it a more efficient process for extraction of the water.
Having been here when we went through that, a lot of negotiation happened when we put that in place with the residents that are adjacent to it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that whatever we're doing here as far as getting this to operate in the way it should isn't going to put a new burden on the residents who are close by with that.
No, this is simply just to improve the efficiencies of the well,
Okay. Excellent.
existing wells.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? We'll go and close it to the public. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion from Commissioner Hudak, seconded by Vice Mayor Parnas. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parnas,
yes,
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Okay, we are now at comments by administration and legal. No substantive comments tonight. Congratulations to Commissioner Drosky for being installed as the president of the Broward League on Saturday night. Very cool to watch.
Thank you. I echo the city attorney's comments. Commissioner, congratulations. And I have no further comments this evening.
Thank you.
We are now at city commission business. Last item on the agenda, item 16, discussion regarding the selection of a voting delegate to the Florida League of Cities 2023 annual conference from April 10th through 12th, 2023. I think this is for the purposes of appointing a delegate.
Are we keeping with Commissioner Hudak? Has he,
Wishes with that.
you're okay with that? Anyone else? Okay, Vice Mayor.
He wants it, he can have it.
Is there anyone from the public that would care to comment on this item? Close it to the public.
Motion to approve.
Second,
It just says discussion. I mean, are we discussing it? Is it a motion?
Well, I think
I'm looking at just the
it's a
language.
discussion, but we have to appoint somebody. Is it just a gentleman's agreement that we move forward with that?
We're looking for a motion, I think, for the official action, yes. Discussion and selection.
Okay, didn't say that. Discussion. Okay, that's fine. Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
You are now at comments by mayor and city commission.
District 4.
Let me start by saying how extremely disappointed I am that we did not open with the Junkanoo band at the commission meeting tonight. I want to thank, all my colleagues in the city, but for coming on Saturday night, but this has nothing to do with me. I'm just the face or the body behind it. I mean, this is really a city effort. In the 66 years of the Broward League of Cities, Deerfield has had the presidency twice. First with Gwen Clark Reed, who was there actually Saturday night. And then myself is second. So this is a testament to the city. It has nothing to do with me. I don't want the accolades. I mean, it is on behalf of the entire commission that I act, because it's my colleagues that allow me to act and give me the time to do that we are in this position. So I want to thank all my, colleagues, Commissioner Hudak for giving the Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Preston for giving the great invocation. The only thing is I wish the crowd was more quiet when you were doing that to hear the words that you had to impart to us, because I thought they were very important. And of course, Mayor Gans for doing the installation. I would not have picked anyone else in the world to do that. When they asked who do I do your name, there was nobody else.
Thank you.
Nobody else to do that. We also had our team, 2 tables there full of city representatives. I want to thank all of you for coming out as well. The team of Rebecca and Dave Hunt were there for a substantial portion of the day, helped to coordinate that event. So there's a lot of thanks to go around. If you notice, I didn't thank anyone Saturday night, because when you start with 1, then you go to 2, and then I started with my remarks, and then it became like a whole page. I'm like, this is going to take up the entire night, and I'm going to bore the entire crowd, which was not the intent. So the thanks come tonight, but I want to thank all of you that were behind the scenes to help make this work. And now it's time to roll up the sleeves and the hard work begins. So it seems like every year there's something that's unanticipated that takes kind of the issue. There's COVID, or the Parkland shooting, or the SRO issues. Something always comes up that's unanticipated. So trying to anticipate the unanticipated is going to be the goal going forward. The only other thing I have for tonight is July 1st is my next Saturday office hours. Even though it's a holiday weekend, I'll be around and still having those. Contact me or the city manager directly, but I want to thank you all again for attending Saturday night.
Thank you. District 3.
Todd, my apologies for not coming to your swearing in, but it took me 3 days to dry out after 6 o'clock on Saturday, after a 10-hour day with Juneteenth. So you'll forgive me, but you had my wishes and my thoughts and prayers for a successful presidency. I know you'll do well. That's all I have for this particular meeting.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. District 2.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the African American Heritage Committee and staff for the great job that they did of Juneteenth celebration. We did a real good job of advertising, and it showed in the amount of people that came out. One thing that I was impressed with, that there was a lot more people coming from the other districts. So staff, you did a great job. African American Heritage Board, you did a good job. So many people have called me about it, and it really went well. So thanks again. I would like to say congratulations to my colleague, and say that we're all wishing you the best. You know, there's an old adage that it is better to give than to receive, but there are some times that you can receive the accolades. It's okay, you know, so it's okay. So let people say thanks, you know, and they were proud of you, and I know you do well, and you have a group of colleagues here that is all wishing for your success, and I know that you will do well, not necessarily just for this group of guys, but for all that you would represent, and taking it serious as you are doing. So thank you very much for that. And that's it for me, Mayor.
Thank you. District 1?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I agree with the sentiments of my colleagues. I really thought it was a swearing at party, not a swearing in, but I did show up anyway. Not only do we wish you great success, we're here to support you and to help you succeed. So anything that you need from myself, and I'm sure my colleagues, just ask, and we will be there for you. I do have one thing that I do want to bring forth that I've already talked with the city manager about, and we need to improve upon. June 14th, last Wednesday, was Flag Day. Now, we do a great job in celebrating Haitian Flag Day, but United States Flag Day, we did nothing on. And that was an embarrassment to myself as a veteran, I'm sure to the vice mayor, and I'm sure to the city manager. We all took an oath to protect that flag, and we need to make sure that Deerfield Beach is proud. As proud as we are as the Haitian Flag Day, I want to make sure that we're even prouder of the American Flag Day. So I know that we have plans to make sure that we celebrate that in full force next year. And I just want to let you know that it was not missed. It was noticed. And I want to make sure that going forward, we do something very special. And those are all the comments that I have today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do want to bring up a point that was made earlier tonight, and it's a good point as far as the Fireman's Pension Board and their updated information that they have, whether it's online or wherever it's at. That absolutely should be a lot easier to find and should be updated. I know we have limited, I don't want to say with that, but I think there needs to be an expectation that that stuff is easy to find and shouldn't be that outdated if that was accurate. So to Mr. Herz's point, it's a good point that needs to change. It's really nice to see Senator Pizzo's staff members here. He is extraordinary with what he's doing in Tallahassee and working with us, and their availability to us has been really great to see and very refreshing. So I want to thank them for being here and always reaching out and keeping us informed a lot of the things that are going on. Sorry, I'm looking for my information here. Yes, Juneteenth was great, you know, and I tell you what, staff, you did a really good job with trying to keep everybody patient during the thunderstorms and not being allowed to take the field. Despite that, there were some really cool things about it. One of the things I really liked is I love the family tents, because we have such a rich history here in Deerfield Beach. To have those tents and have those families be able to gather like that and to see how far they go back, that was really cool. I really liked that. I thought that was a neat touch, and it made it Deerfield, I felt. So that was great. Commissioner Drosky, you know, this is historic that you are the president of the Broward League of Cities. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of stuff to do there, and you've put in the time, you've put in the hard work, and you wouldn't be there if people didn't believe in you like we all do. So Congratulations. It was an honor to be a part of it. It was an honor to be there. And we know you're going to do outstanding things. I believe, I hope, I really feel like I'm missing something. My apologies if I am. That's all I have.
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.